Hey, what's going on, everyone? Justin here, and I want to make sure I keep doing my reading wrap-ups. I think I missed November's, but I have December's here. It's probably the weirdest month for me as far as reading goes. I only read 7 books, which is maybe at one or two below average, but 3 of them were fiction classics and whatnot, so I have no idea what is going on. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into it because, like I said, it's just so bizarre. So first up, we have the Kalevala, and this is the Oxford World Classics edition, which is kind of I guess, the editions I'm going to be going for if I want to read something that's fiction and they have it in this kind of edition. Probably just start collecting them. Um, but yeah, this is an epic poem based out of like the oral tradition of Finland, and I think it's Elias Lönnrot, 1849, that compiled it and everything, and then translated into English by Keith Bosley, if I remember correctly. Yep. And I was nervous at first. I had heard about it a little bit, and I thought it was gonna be like some, like, I guess, great value version of like the Iliad or Nibelungenlied or something like that, and it wasn't. It was very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I love this translation. You can definitely feel kind of like the spirit of like the oral song kind of going on. Like, I feel like you could be like eating at a feast or a banquet hall or long hall or whatever. During like the long winter months, like I have to experience too. It's like 2 degrees outside. And then listening to like some of these tales and stuff. I think the rhythm and meter and all that stuff, I don't really know much about that kind of thing, but I could like feel it even like in translation. I just really enjoyed it, and I've been just apparently making everyone suffer. Every time I bring this book up, I have to like read like a random passage out of it. So this is what you're gonna get. So at that, old Wainamoinen went away out of Northland, went in good spirits, gladly towards his own lands, and then he recited thus: Turn, craft, from Northland, turn yourself homeward, and your back to foreign lands. O wind, lull craft, water, rock the boat, give help to the oars, ease to the tiller on these wide waters, on these open expanses. If the oars are small, the rowers puny, the helmsman little, the pilot's children. Otto, give oars of yours, a boat of yours, watermaster, new and better oars. Another firmer paddle, apply yourself to the oars, settle down to row, let the wooden craft run, let the iron rowlock cleave through the steep foam and the froth-capped waves. At that, old Wainamoinen goes full speed ahead. As for Smith, Ilmarinen, and wanton Lemminkainen, they are there rowing, rowing and speeding along over the mains clear waters, over the vast waves. Wanton Lemminkainen said, Once upon a time, as a rower had water, so a singer had a tale, but not nowadays do we ever hear lilting in a boat, singing on the waves. Steady, old Wainamoinen uttered a word and spoke thus: No lilting on the waters and no singing on the waves. Song keeps you lazy, tales delay rowing. Precious day would pass and night would overtake us midday on these waters upon these vast waves. I don't know. So I just thought it just sounded really good, and I probably did like a terrible job doing the kind of like rendition and everything. But I just, like I said, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. If you like epic poetry, you're missing out if you haven't read this one. So anyone who likes like Homer, Song of Roland, anything like that, definitely give this one a look. Next up, we have my very first NYRB, New York Review of Books classics, and this is Our Philosopher by Gert Hoffmann, and this one is translated out of the German by Eric Mace Tessler. And for my very first NYRB book, I'm quite impressed. I bought another one to start adding to the collection. I think I have 6 or 7 now, based on some suggestions. If you do have suggestions for some of these, leave some comments down below, because I have a feeling I'm going to like a lot of them. But this is the story of a young boy. He's the son of the town doctor during 1930s Germany between the wars. And things are kind of like on the pickup after, just kind of a really bad economic downturn, as there was in the 20s in Germany. Obviously, other stuff is happening during this time period, and Herr Weichenfeld is a professor from the university who has to move to this kind of rural town because he suddenly has to leave his post and is kicked out. And since you're reading through the lens of, I think he's around like 8 years old or so when the book starts, it seems it's not like directly addressed. You kind of just see what people had to, like the Jewish population had to experience, even though that's not directly stated. You never hear about Nazis, you never hear about Jews, anything like that. But you just feel the weight of the oppression and isolation that Herr Weichenfeld has to go through over like the course of several years as he becomes more and more ostracized by the people in his community, and just kind of the acquiescence that the town just kind of lets happen. For example, he tries to eventually leave after years of being kind of isolated in his home, kind of fearing to come out after being like assaulted and threatened and all kinds of stuff. And then, the clerks and stuff just rip up his passports and everything after like, months and months of delays. Things like that. So like I said, it's just death by 1,000 cuts, almost literally. And yeah, just like I said, you just feel it's not very long. I think it's only like 150 pages or so. But just like I said, just the weight of the material just like kind of just starts smothering you like as you go on and on. Which I feel like is probably like it's a good thing to kind of make you think and just consider everything. Like I said, especially coming through like the eyes of like a little kid and everything that was witnessing it. So I highly recommend that one. Next up is another classic that I read is Émile Zola's The Fortune of the Rougon, which is the first book in the Rougon-Macquart cycle, which is 20 books detailing all kinds of society and culture and everyday life of people during the Second French Empire under Napoleon III, which would be like the 1850s and 1860s until Prussia kind of comes along and puts an end to that. I think in 1871, I believe it is, or I want to say that off the top of my head. Anyways, this is the first book, and it kind of sets up the beginning of the genealogy of this huge kind of family tree going on. With the the Rougon being the what do you call it, the legitimate side of the family, and then you have the kind of the bastardized cadet side of the family with the Macquarts. And I think there's going to be a third line as well at some point. And you can just, it's all about the ill-gotten gains that the patriarch of the Rougon side of the family, how they kind of weasel their way into politics and everything, and bank on the right side, and like I said, just kind of their blood money that they're able to earn. There's also a tale of two young lovers getting swept up in the whole coup d'etat that's going on, and kind of just the tragedy that is. And I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed the writing style. I feel like I'm going to really, really like Émile Zola's stuff. I have read most of Germinal before, which is why I wanted to read this cycle. I think that's like book 13. You can technically read each book in isolation, but there is kind of like something of like kind of a wider narrative, a little bit of a wider narrative, just because almost all the characters are related kind of distantly throughout all the books and everything over the generation or two. Like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I feel like it's not grimdark is not the right word, obviously, kind of dealing with fantasy and stuff. But it's gritty, but not to the point of just kind of the weird death for death's sake stuff that like a lot of like the Russian stuff seems to have. Like you still have like the concepts of like, dying for love and dying for honor and all that kind of thing sort of going on, but it is a lot more grittier than I think a lot of classics during the time where and just because Zola's school of literary school is known as like scientific naturalism, and kind of had like a literary movement in the second half of the 19th century there, kind of based on just like, being very down to earth and kind of scientific with the approach to like society and culture and like your characters and everything. So I think I'm going to really, really enjoy it. So I'm going to be moving on to the next one, which I think is called The Kill, for the next book. But like I said, this is just the opening one for a 20 book cycle. So we'll see how that goes. Next up, I actually listened to, on audiobook form, Émile Zola, a very short introduction, just kind of as a warm-up to prepare myself for this whole endeavor. And that's written by Brian Nelson, who did, I think, pretty much all the translations out of the French for the Oxford World Classics series. And a lot of these hadn't been translated. There's only like maybe 2 other translations in English, and they're about, I think one is from like the late 1800s, one's from like the early-ish 1900s, so some of them didn't have an English translation for quite a while, but apparently he's like the world-leading expert on Émile Zola at the moment, so I thought it was just kind of cool. I felt it did a really great job, and obviously one of those kind of very short introduction books, introducing a lot of the different kind of cultural concepts that Émile Zola wanted to like address, and he doesn't go through every single book, but he highlights I think 6 or 7 of the books, and kind of like their major themes and how they're kind of worked with through the cycle and stuff. I think if you're going to read the 20 books, you might as well read that, like I said, ahead of time as well. Like, they're very short introductions, so they don't take too long. I feel like you'll kind of, like I said, just prime your brain ready to get into them. Now let's move on to some of the nonfiction. Like I said, 3 classics for me in 1 month is crazy. I don't think I've ever done that in my entire life. So, woo. All right. For the history book that I read Mike Cole's Steel Lobsters, Crown Commonwealth, and the Last Nights in England. And Osprey was kind enough to send me a review copy here. And this is all about essentially the last iteration of fully armored knight warriors, like on the battlefield. And this is during the opening stages of the English Civil War in the mid 1600s there. And we had on the the rebellion side here under we had cavaliers that were literally fully armored in the old style, but instead of swords and lances, they did have like an arming sword for the most part, but they're using firearms as their primary weapons. But unlike dragoons, who were essentially lightly armed and armored, they would kind of ride to the battlefield, ride to where they wanted to with their firearm, and then dismount and then use their firearms and stuff. These guys, known as the Lobsters, their little unit was called Sir Arthur Heselridge's. His cuirassiers were just known as the Lobsters because they were fully plate mailed like the old style knights. And you kind of learn about why that didn't go so great in the mid 1600s and why kind of it was just sort of the final nail on the coffin and the death knell for like plate armored warriors like on the battlefield. If you enjoy kind of, like I said, English history, like especially obviously like the English Civil War, you really can't go wrong here. But I feel like if you're kind of just into like military histories, kind of like the evolution of firearms, evolution of armor, and if you enjoy knights, this really is kind of like the 2 minutes to midnight for the knight on the battlefield. I thought it was super interesting, and it was about something I guess I just assumed fully armored guys were gone way like before this English Civil War. So really interesting to learn about. Next up, I have one is here. We got like a science-y kind of memoir. I'm not sure what you call it. We have The Draw of the Sea by Will Menmuir. And he is a nature author, and this is just kind of his like love letter to the ocean, just because he spends so much time on the beach, going around surfing and everything like that. In the UK, I think it's Wales for the most part. This one didn't hit super well for me. The writing was good. Like, there was nothing really wrong with the writing. It's just a lot of the kind of allegories and the kind of the vignettes he drew upon. Most of them, just like I said, I didn't feel much from it for whatever reason. And it's not because I'm just like a child of the forest with a lot of the stuff I read. I do a lot of stuff by the ocean too, whenever I get a chance to go down East Maine. And I used to live like not right on the beach, real close to the beach when I used to live in Florida and everything. So I do love the ocean and the beach as well. So I think maybe if you're around that part of the world, maybe it would be a little bit different. Like I said, I don't know, there was just something off, and I can't quite put my finger on it. So I feel like I'm doing this book kind of a disservice. I don't know, just like I said, just something just didn't resonate with me, and it is what it is. But look at this cover. He does have another book, I think, kind of in the same vein. I want to say when I was looking this one up, but I might be completely wrong. Let's see, does he have a list of the other books he's written? Nope, he does not. Shoot. Well, I thought there was another one kind of in the same idea, but maybe not. Like I said, the cover is tremendous, so whoever did that, great job there. And then lastly was one of my favorite books of the year, kind of slipping in right in December. We have This Ordinary Stardust, A Scientist's Path from Grief to Wonder by Alan Townsend. And this was just a super weighty book for how small it was as well. The book is a memoir of the author, when starting off from when his I think she was 4, his young daughter developed a brain tumor, a cancerous brain tumor, and kind of just the shock and reeling from that and what they had to do, how do you make choices and decisions objectively to like kind of pick treatments and things like that. And the whole book is taken through, he's a super prominent scientist. He's like, no, I'm going to use the scientific method every way. I'm going to be logical. I'm going to do this and that. And how that kind of breaks down at some points, it's just, it just doesn't compute. Like, it just doesn't always work. Anyways, so you're dealing with that. Finally, the daughter starts to recover and everything, and then his wife is diagnosed with a completely unrelated brain tumor, a different one, a different kind, that's very aggressive and everything like that. And unfortunately, she is not able to pull through, despite their best efforts to kind of combat and treat her diagnosis as well. So, and he's like, at the same time trying to do the same approach or similar approaches and everything. And he's kind of going through his thought processes and kind of flashbacks to, their different times together and everything like that, dealing with the natural world, dealing with, as a scientist, how do you approach everything and everything. So it's a very good book, kind of dealing with how he was super close from falling into despair. But he was actually able to use just kind of his like wonder of the natural world to kind of bring himself out of like that abyss and that sort of thing. So just really, I don't know, I found the writing really well done. The story obviously is there's just a lot there and everything, but thoroughly enjoyed this book. I feel like a lot of people really should give this one a try if you can handle kind of reading about cancer and death and that kind of thing. So yeah, so there you have it. Those were the 7 books that I finished in December. Like I said, I want to make sure I keep doing the wrap-ups and everything like that. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite book that you read in December was, and whatever you end up reading for January, always remember, read victoriously.